And a very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes. My name is Jeff Owens, and I'm director at WEIU. My guests are zooming in today are Beth Gillespie. She's the director of civic engagement and volunteerism at EIU. Welcome, Beth.
Welcome. Thank you. We're glad to be here.
And your better half, sorry, Dr. Michael Gillespie, associate professor of sociology here at EIU. Welcome, Michael.
Howdy. How you guys doing?
We are doing good. We are, again, following all the rules, so you guys are zooming in today. I appreciate you taking a little time off of your Thanksgiving break to spend the next half hour talking about what we're going to talk about. But I think it's important, and I know you all do too. It's this thing that during this week of Thanksgiving, when we kind of all overindulge sometimes, that there's a real crisis out there besides the pandemic, is food insecurity and hunger on college campuses, including EIU. Michael, if you would just kind of illuminate a little bit about what that is, we'd appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah. So food insecurity has to do with the risk of not knowing where your next meal comes from. And if you do know where your next meal comes from, that it's nutritionally adequate. So, full bellies, sometimes, people see, plenty of food perhaps in people's kitchens, or especially in college dorm rooms and things. But what's the healthful benefits of that food? Has to do with food insecurity as well. Food security is one of those issues that has been growing on college campuses all over the country, and it's something I've been looking at for about 5 years now here at Eastern. I've been collecting data from the students themselves on a survey I've been doing every fall, and what we find is about 40% of our students on campus report some level of risk of food insecurity, whether that's not being able to afford food, not being able to get food in a timely manner, or food that makes them feel healthful, makes them feel ready to take on the day, makes them feel like they're nutritionally adequate and able to feed their bodies to do what needs to be done.
And that's 40% you just said. So that's 4 out of every 10 kids really don't know where their next meal is either come from, or whether it be where they'll have enough nutrition to really make it worth the while. Correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Now, when you say you're working on numbers each fall, are you compiling new stats right now? Is there any new data out there yet?
I just finished the survey actually last week, and so I don't have the data fully done yet. But what I know from the past 4 years of my data collection is it's steadily rising, and that 40% is about what we would expect. That meets about the same level as we see nationwide, a little bit higher, of course, depending on the school, depending on the geographic location and other support systems that the colleges have for these issues. And I'm expecting probably a higher level this year. The pandemic has really taken its toll, not just on college students, but on communities all over the country, and especially in terms of food insecurity and poverty and all those other related issues as well.
Let's bring Beth in on this. Beth, your thoughts from what you do as the director of civic engagement here, and when you think about food insecurity on the campus, because you were involved with a lot of students.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very easy thing to hide. Hunger doesn't have a certain look, but we know it's got devastating effects on students, whether they're kids in elementary school or college students. If you aren't getting enough food, it's going to be really hard to function successfully in the classroom. It's going to be hard to have enough energy to get out and get involved with your community, because you're constantly aware of the fact that you aren't getting enough to eat. And it just really has widespread impact on you, a person as an individual, as well as on our community overall. So civic engagement, we take definitely a big focus on this issue and have built in programming to try to do something about it.
And both of you can answer this. When you think about COVID and the pandemic hitting during the time when people don't have enough to eat, sometimes on college campuses across the country, but then again, when you think about food drives and people coming in to eat in kitchens and stuff, there's a lot of interaction with people. Does that kind of tend to lessen the food drives and lessen people want to volunteer because they're a little bit scared of the effect of COVID could have?
Yes, we definitely have seen less numbers from a volunteer standpoint this fall. We also have offered less volunteer opportunities. So I don't have enough data to say that the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic is the reason people aren't volunteering at the same rate. We are We have been doing volunteer opportunities outside up through last week so that we can make it as safe as possible for people. And we had students volunteering every single time that we offered something like that. And we also, during November, we took RSO groups, so students who were already interacting with each other, to the local food pantry, and those filled up like that. Like, we sent an email to the RSOs, and within a half hour had gotten enough responses to fill up the 5 weeks worth of volunteer opportunities at the local food pantry. So I think students, everybody should be concerned about COVID, but it isn't stopping people from getting involved in volunteering.
There you go. Michael, anything to add on that?
Yeah, we're lucky in the sense that we have a strong college community here in Charleston and in Coles County, where we can tap into young people who are able to do this volunteer work. And as Beth just said, able to fill out those volunteer opportunities during our month of November at the snap of a finger. But one thing that we do know in food pantries and other food relief related organizations that don't have the same kind of pool of young people who can volunteer, we know that they're really struggling for volunteers. Most volunteers at these places are people who are retired or who are elderly, and we know that the pandemic and the COVID-19 virus really target them disproportionately. And the opportunities at these places which are providing food relief are starting to really be stressed by the lack of volunteers that they can get, and the diversity of volunteers, because they're limiting volunteer hours as well at many of these places. I know the food bank up in Champaign is having these issues, and other of the larger food pantries around the region, not just in our county, are also feeling stressed because of this. So I think to double back on what Beth said, we really have that, those people who can and are willing and able, just based on not just the university being here, but also because people can isolate themselves within their housing units and then volunteer as housing units or RSOs or other organizations, that is becoming a benefit.
One of the things that kind of distressed me as I did some research this morning is when you think of what you said with, 4 out of 10 college students, at least in the Eastern Illinois area, going hungry on some days, or at least not knowing where their meal's coming from. The amount of waste this week alone for Thanksgiving that's produced in America is absolutely incredible. And we can talk about it. We waste food. I'll be the one who'll throw some stuff away by Sunday or whatever as well. But what can we do to maybe waste less during Thanksgiving and give back more? Any hints or suggestions of what this country and local people can do?
Well, we do have an abundance of food in this country, which we're really blessed to have. We do have a lot of outlets for food, even during a pandemic where the shelves might be a little more bare. There's still food available. One thing that tends to happen is we tend to hoard things instead of spread that out. So, instead of overbuying and then overcooking, perhaps cut back on the size of meals or cut back on the things that you do buy. And if you do purchase some, there's plenty of food drives or there's opportunities to get that out as well. We know that celebrations this week are going to have less people involved, so maybe take stock of that and cook as you would a regular meal or something like that. One thing that we do know from a public health perspective is once you cook food and it's not in an industrial kitchen, that can't go anywhere. So if you're overcooking, you can't donate that food. But if you buy a few extra things, maybe you have a couple extra cans of beans that you bought, or maybe you bought a couple extra loaves of bread that you didn't use, that stuff can be donated. But once it's cooked, it's really hard to pay that forward.
Okay. I know most of the college students here on Eastern's campus are gone home this week when we had this show, and it's a sensitive issue. But maybe with them out being here, what ways can you get students who maybe are going hungry but don't feel like they can come forward to maybe convince them that, hey, it's okay when you to go to someone for help? How do you get them to ask that?
So one of the things that we do is when we take student volunteers to the food pantry, we obviously need help, right? Like, we're feeding, last week we fed 28 different households, but we also at the end, we talk with those students and after they've seen us, treat every person who's come through there with respect and kindness and just an understanding that life is hard and we all are going to need some kind of help at some point in time. Then we say, you as college students, here are the things that you would the qualifications you likely qualify. Would you also like to get a box of food? So that it normalizes that without a stigma, without any judgment, which is one of the reasons that I love taking students to the food pantry, because it is a huge help and they don't have to ask for it. We're offering it. Which I think is huge. Another thing that we've worked really hard to do is build a full list of all of the food pantries that we have in Coles County. And it's literally enough to fill an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And we have the hours, we have the requirements. Some of them you can go once every 30 days. Some you can go, every week, like the food pantry at the Newman Catholic Center. Just trying to make it available. So we've shared that with faculty and asked people just to post it. We've shared it with residents, the residence hall RAs, and said, can you just put this on your door so that somebody doesn't have to come forward and actively say, I need help putting food on the table, but they can walk by if they're thinking that and see that this is a resource, so that it doesn't have to be this big kind of a conversation. And the other thing that we've done that it's one of the things I'm most proud of is civic engagement partnered with the Booth Library. And we've had snack stations in the library for the last year. And there was a local coalition of churches did a hunger hike and raised money. And we've been able to put snacks in the library free for any student who needs them successfully over the last year. And our intent with that was to restock that once a week. That was our plan. We literally restock it 5 days a week.
Really?
The food goes that fast. And we also have the sheet of resources at the snack stations in the library. But it's about finding those creative ways without creating any judgment, where students can walk by and say, like if you're hungry, like if you're literally hungry, you can't study, you can't retain information. So we are wanting to find ways to support our students in ways that just feels easy for them and doesn't feel intrusive.
And is that list of places that students and people can get food, that's on your part of the website on the EIU as well?
Yep.
Okay.
We have a tab that says, Are You Hungry? On our website. And for the last 12 months pre-COVID, it was the #1 most visited tab on our website every single month. So people are looking for that information. And so we just have to make it as easy as possible for them to get it.
Good. That's a great answer, Beth. Thank you. Michael, I want to go back to you on this next question, because and I'm going to put you on the spot, but that's what I do here. Okay.
Yeah.
I know you do your research here in Coles County, and you're the one who's really brought me and some of us here around the radio and TV center to the forefront of even understanding what food insecurity was. I'll be honest with you, I didn't think about it prior to talking to you and Beth. But nationwide, is there other research and stuff being done that is hopefully going to help solve the problem, not just, more than, here, but everywhere?
Oh, there's research being done all over the place. We're starting now to get some nationwide research done on college campuses specifically, which is really great. We have been lacking that. Most of the studies are like what I do, which are very campus specific, which we treat as case studies. And case studies are important because case studies give us the ability to look at an individual campus and really drill down and see what those issues are on that campus. Okay. But what we know is that this is becoming a normal part of the college student experience. And we think about what students should expect when they go to college, right? Students should expect to be able to get and go to classes and get a good education, but also all the social opportunities that they have, and perhaps get some social capital and access to jobs and internships and all that stuff. And we also know now that students struggle to get enough food into their system. It's becoming a normal part of the college student experience. At 40%, I would say that's a normalizing thing. And just to kind of complement what Beth had talked about, because it's at that level, at a national incidence, there's ways that we can make it understood as a normal part of that college student experience, and seeing that tab being the #1 click on the volunteer website, and seeing how much those snacks are being taken, I think is a testament to just what it's becoming like for our college students these days.
You said that the good thing about America is that we have a lot of food, but is climate change anywhere involved in there? Have you talked to people that says climate change affects our food supplies as well?
I think climate change is going to affect the food supplies. I think it's going to affect the types of foods that are available. But I also think that it's an area of opportunity as well, especially for younger students coming up now, just getting into the field who are interested in these issues, looking at different ways that we might be able to grow some of our staple crops like corn and wheat and soybeans in ways that are more sustainable. We know that the places around the world that are most affected by climate change are third world countries, they're developing countries, they're countries that rely on agriculture that don't have these mechanisms to be able to reinvent their agricultural systems. And so those are the ones that are going to be hurt the most by climate change. We feel it in the United States, but we also have opportunities where we can work against that. But the food crisis around the world is you can't strip it away from a climate crisis.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask is, this may come off as kind of silly, but students are hungry. There's people hungry all over the world, but we're really talking about Coles County and the United States here. Will non-traditional foods become a factor in the future? I know in other countries, insects are part of the staple of the diet. There's other things that we just don't think about eating here in America. Will that ever change, do you think?
That's a cultural question, and that's really a question about what we value, how we see food, how we see the ways there are different types of food or opportunities to get nutrients in our body can really, help us out. I don't eat meat personally, and that's now becoming a mainstream thing within our culture, where 10, 15, 20 years ago, people look at you sideways if you said that you didn't eat meat. And so who knows what those opportunities will be. What the non-traditional food is now might be a perfectly acceptable food. Who knows, Jeff? And 20 years ago, sit down for Thanksgiving to a meal of crickets, which is a totally plausible thing.
Yeah, it's funny because you hit the nail on the head. Used to, when somebody said they didn't eat meat, you looked at them like, "What's wrong with you?" And now it's becoming there's so many more people. But I think in the past we kind of would always kind of really. And now it's like, oh, okay, big deal. Which is kind of is a neat thing that we've seen change happen, because in this world right now where so much change is going on, that isn't always the way it is. But that's one of the things that has kind of got through, and I think people understand it, and there's not near as much animosity between the two groups of whether what you eat, who cares, right?
Right.
Looking again on my little study this morning, there's something called an FIES, a Food Insecurity Experience Scale, that the government is working on, and I didn't go into detail, but do you know what that is?
I'm learning about it. It's really about what that experience is about being food insecure. So what is that daily life like? What is it about having and experiencing food insecurity? And that way it will help us target how we can better intervene in the lives of people who are not getting enough to eat, and what kind of impacts it has on their life. That experience scale is really about measuring what is that experience of not having enough food.
Okay. And Beth, I know also this month was Hunger Action Month, and I know that a lot of people got involved. Were you involved in that? And can you give us an update on Hunger Action Month?
Yeah, so Hunger Action Month actually started 8 years ago.
That's a long
Michael
month.
And my predecessor, Rachel Fisher, got together and came up with this idea. And so each November we bring it back. And it's just about educating the campus community about hunger, about food insecurity, and what we can do about it. Obviously, this year things looked a little different with COVID, as everything is looking a little different these days. But we had successful programs. We're doing a Netflix and Fill Your Brain with New Information series, where we watch a movie on our own time or a documentary and then come together and have conversation about it. So we viewed the documentary A Place at the Table. We partnered with athletics again, which is a huge, just a partnership I'm grateful for. Every November collected a ton of canned good donations that we took to Standing Stone's food pantry here in Charleston last week. They filled up our office minivan with donations. So if anyone from athletics is listening, thank you. You're helping us feed people right here in our community. And we were able to do different kind of programs like that just to help spread the word, but do it safely, and have people understand that giving back, if you have a canned don't, like if you have something from your house, like if Michael said, if you went and we're preparing for a Thanksgiving meal for the people who live in your household and have a little bit extra, consider maybe giving that. If you are financially able, one of the things that I didn't know until we started taking volunteers to the food pantry was that if I go to the store and I purchase a can of beans, I spend $1 on that. If I donate that $1 instead of buying canned goods, then the food pantries, because of their buying power, can buy $10 worth of food with that $1. So if you're financially able, giving that dollar, donating money to food pantries is the most powerful way that you can directly impact the people that they serve. But if you can't, absolutely give canned goods. And the number one canned good that they need, that they get the least, are canned meats.
Really?
So things like ravioli, canned chicken. So if you're thinking about this and are rooting around in your cupboard right now, those are the things that our food pantries need the most.
Very interesting. I'm glad you saw that. And I like the $1 equals 10 because that way, if you go give somebody, if you can afford $10, then you're giving them $100 worth of food basically. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Michael or Beth can answer this one. Is there other factors into food insecurity that we just are not thinking about that sometimes is happening out there? Do we know?
For factors for the general population, students?
Yeah, either one. Just something that we're not thinking about when we think about the food insecurity problem as a whole.
Well, I think, if you think about the basic needs that any human being has, food, water, shelter, there's so much that can unfold from that. There's so many things in your life that translate from how you're able to just meet your basic needs. And we see that there are not just personal health issues based on malnutrition, but if people are not getting enough food, and it's across an entire community or across an entire geographic area, that tends to be then public health issues. Your immune system, we're talking a lot about immunity right now, has a lot to do with how your body is nourished and the energy that it has. And so it becomes a public health issue. It also becomes an economic issue in terms of what kind of foods are available, how people can afford to pay for those foods. It touches upon so many factors of our life that we might not even think about and might not even be able to understand.
Okay. Michael, we use that. Go ahead, Beth. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, too, from the college student perspective, when you look at the cost of college, dining plans are the only thing that isn't fixed, right? Like you're going to pay X amount of tuition, you're going to pay X amount for housing, whether it's on campus or off, but the number of meals that you purchase is the only fluid piece of the cost of college, and so if finances are a concern, which we know that yes, finances are a concern for a lot of students. College is expensive. If you're stressing about money, that is the one piece you can say, I want less access to food because it will reduce the amount of money that you're paying. And that is just a scary piece because we want our students to be successful in the classroom, which means they have to have enough access to enough healthy food to get them to graduation.
Okay.
That's right. And to, you think about if you're on a fixed budget and these finances, everything's a trade-off. What do you need and what are you going to cut back on? And just as Beth said, that fluid piece, most of the food plans that are on campus, and correct me if I'm wrong, Beth, because I know you know this too, is the lowest level. So it's the least amount of meals at the least amount of swipes because it's the cheapest food plan, but it doesn't give you enough food for 3 meals a day and a couple extra on the weekend. It is a bare minimum food plan. And so, we know that over 40% of the students who have participated in my survey, whether they're food insecure or food secure, have food plans. There's not a difference there, but there's so many other factors that go into that that are impacting their ability to be able to get enough food on their table.
And with your survey, when will those stats be available for people to take in?
I have the one from last fall up, and I can make that available. That's posted all over the place, but I can definitely send that into you too. The survey just closed as part of Hunger Action Month, and so it usually takes me a little while to crunch those numbers and to get it all kind of ferreted out. So hopefully early next year, January.
No, that's not bad at all. No. Yeah. And Beth, we have a few minutes left. Any update on your department's ongoings? Anything else that you want to take care of here in the final few minutes here?
Yeah, it's not really connected to hunger, but we have Students Power the Holiday Hustle, which is a fundraiser for One Stop Community Christmas. It started from, I think it was one of Dr. England's honor classes, maybe eight or 9 years ago. And last year they raised over $1,500 for One Stop Community Christmas. And if you aren't familiar, the short version of One Stop is that the intent of it is to make December brighter for an entire household, not just focused on making sure the kids have gifts under a Christmas tree or for the holidays. But we do that as well. So the families, we have over 900 who have registered this year. And in those 900 local families, there are over 2,300 kids. And one of the things that we also are really passionate about at One Stop is making sure that we have enough food that we can give each family a substantial holiday meal, including like a ham or a chicken, dessert, vegetables, because we know if you're already making tough choices, do I pay rent or do I put food on the table? You can only spend your money once, and we want to do something to help support the family units as a whole. So the Holiday Hustle is a 5K or a 3.1 mile event that normally takes place on campus. Nice thing this year is no matter where you are, you can participate and register. Registration is still open up through Friday, December 4th, which is just over a week away. Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
So if you're interested, please go to Facebook, find One Stop Community Christmas, and all the information is there. But know that by participating in that, you are making the difference in over 900 local families here in East Central Illinois.
All right. About a minute left. We're going to do rapid fire. We'll go Beth and Michael. Do you have a favorite cooking show or a TV show about food? Do you watch any of those?
I do not. I will let Michael answer for us.
Michael?
The Great British Bake Off.
Okay.
Of course.
Favorite part of the Thanksgiving meal, Michael?
I will go with the butternut squash.
Ooh. But Beth?
Mashed potatoes, hands down.
All right. What about soup? Are you soup fans? Your all-time favorite type of soup?
Chicken noodle?
Chicken noodle for Beth?
I'm a tomato soup fan.
Oh, God, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of pie will you have at the Gillespie Thanksgiving?
Well, if we were going to have a pie, I would fight for an apple pie, but
Me
I'm
and you
not
are
sure.
kindred spirits, my man.
We are. We're furry kindred spirits.
Beth, pie?
I would skip the dessert and just have some more mashed potatoes.
That's true.
right,
You'd have a
man.
potato pie.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Now, I'm going to go back to something. Would you eat insects, or do you? I guess I would better.
I don't think I'm very brave like that.
She is not brave like that.
Michael?
I mean, you try everything once, right?
I think if they're chocolate covered, I can do it.
Yes, that's right.
All right. Last question. Do you have do you like Christmas music? Yes or no?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you two both coming in on the week. A lot of people are off here at Eastern, so I appreciate you at least zooming in and being part of our lives and getting this information about food insecurity out. So thanks so much, Beth and Michael.
Thanks for taking.
You're welcome.
Thanks for taking so much interest in this. It means a lot to me that we can get this message out to the community. So thanks once again.
You're more than welcome. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving from everyone at WEIU and EIU.